Hello and welcome to my presentation. I hope I will today present to you the defense industry in the DACH region. This means Germany, Austria, and Switzerland. I will cover where it stands from 2024 to 2026 and where it's headed. First, I will give you a quick overview. Today we will discuss budget growth, policy shifts, key technological drivers, the role of SMEs and that in the defense supply chain, compliance and regulatory demands, innovation trends, and the overall strategic outlook to 2026. Throughout, I will highlight why these facts and trends matter, have a clear picture of how the defense industry in Germany, Austria, and Switzerland is evolving, and I briefly touch how this is related to the digital archiving and compliance solutions. The defense industry is at a turning point right now. The global context has fundamentally changed since 2022, creating what German leaders adopted as a Zeitenwende, or a turning point. Russia's invasion of Ukraine was a wake-up call that ended decades of post-Cold War spending neglect in Europe. Practically overnight, European nations committed to sharply increase their defense budget. This isn't business as usual, it's a paradigmatic shift. This has set off a chain reaction. Higher military spending, political will for stronger defense, and a wave of modernization programs has started. In fact, the global military spending hit a record high of $2.7 trillion, which is a record. This is the biggest annual jump since 2009. Much of that surge came from Europe, new sense of urgency. For the DACH region countries, this means demand for defense equipment is booming, and with it comes opportunities for industrial growth, innovation, and also challenges like scaling production and navigating new policies. To put the DACH region in perspective, Germany as Europe's largest economy is worldwide the fourth biggest military spender. Just the US, China, and Russia spends more. As you saw already, or as you can see here, Germany spends about $88.5 billion in 2024. This is an increasing of 28% in 1 year, and round about 1.9% of the GDP. This has come up from roughly 1.3% a few years prior, coming close to NATO's 2% target. This jump was enabled by a one-time 100 billion euros special fund announcement in 2022 and reflects Germany's commitment to modernize the Bundeswehr. Switzerland, despite its neutrality, is not standing still either. Historically, Swiss defense spending was below 1% of the GDP. But now even Switzerland is boosting its military budget by over 4%, reaching about 5.9 billion Swiss francs, which is round about 0.72% of the GDP. And also Austria is increasing its military spending. In 2024, it was allocated about 4.86 billion euros, which is roughly 1% of the GDP, and rose up from about 70% from the previous year. Austria is investing in things like armored vehicles, aircraft, and munition stocks. This is quite significant, giving Austria small defense budget. Like Switzerland, Austria is traditional neutral and was underspending on its military. For the industry, Austria procurement plans means upgrades for the Austrian armed forces that local companies and also Europe partners can supply. Stepping back, all DACH countries are converging towards higher defense spending, roughly about 2% for Germany and 1% of the GDP for Austria and Switzerland coming this year. The budget increase aren't the only changes. Policy and regulation shifts are reshaping the market too. Let's start with the export controls. Germany has historically been cautious with arms exports, but that is changing, as you can see here. The government has adopted a more pragmatic export control since the Ukraine war. The clearest example, Germany is now one of the top arms donors for the Ukraine and has relaxed the rules to allow export of lethal equipment to conflict zones that would have been politically impossible before 2024. In Germany, defense exports have hit a record high, as you can see here, with 30.6 2.3 billion euros, and a remarkable 60% went to the Ukraine. As you also can see here, the Ukraine is one of the biggest countries where exports go from Germany, Egypt, and Israel are also on first and third place. Switzerland, on the other hand, is a special case. The Swiss law, under its neutral policy, forbids exporting Swiss-made arms to active war zones or allowing re-exports by others, like Germany. This meant Switzerland initially blocked countries from sending Swiss origin armor or to Ukraine. This restrict has been under heavy debate. Switzerland's defense export has actually dropped from 955 million Swiss francs in 2022 to around 700 million Swiss francs in 2023 due to this restriction. And as you can see here, it also dropped in 2024, but not that significantly. If Switzerland relaxes this rule, it could re-energize Swiss defense firms by giving them access to more markets, especially in Europe. It's also politically significant because it shows how even neutral Switzerland is being pushed to reconsider long-haul policies because of the reality in Europe and their security needs. The EU, on the EU level, there are new collaborative programs and regulatories affecting the DACH region. The EU launched a joint procurement program called European Defense Industry Reinforcement through Common Procurement Agreements, such an easy name, to help member states buy equipment together. Also, the European Defense Fund, which provides research and development funding for joint defense projects, got significantly. The EU also pushed the regulatory side beyond pure defense procurement. The EU's NEIS 2 directive and new Critical Infrastructure Act are tightening cybersecurity obligations for companies, including those in defense. This means all the defense contractors down to the smaller IT suppliers must meet higher standards for cybersecurity and data protection. Coming to the technology trends. Because budgets and policies sets the stage, but technologies is where transformation is becoming real. Modern warfare lessons, many from Ukraine, are heavily influencing the DACH tech priorities. One of the major trends is the digitalization of military operations and IT integrations. For example, the German army launched the DLBO program, Digitalisierung landbasierte Operation, which is about digitalizing land-based operations. Under this, the German land forces will receive around 2 billion euros worth of new encrypted radios, real-time data links, and battlefield management systems, plus an additional 1.2 billion euros to integrate IT across all vehicles and platforms. This means moving forward from analog and isolated systems to network data-driven warfare. Soldiers, tanks, and drones are all sharing data live with secure comms, dramatically improving their situation awareness and command speed. Essentially, information dominance becomes as critical as firepower. Defense companies themselves are overhauling how they manage data and documentation. An interesting development is that the big primes and even their suppliers are linking their ERP systems with DMS and archives to meet live documentations and export compliance requirements. In plain language, because defense equipment are decades, think of a fighter jet that has a 30-plus year lifespan with mountains of maintenance logs, part lists, upgrades, and even export paperwork. Companies are now investing into integrated IT systems so that every document from design blueprints to end-use certificates is stored securely, indexed, and easily retrievable for decades. They are doing this also to comply with strict standards like the ISO 9001 or the AQAP, Allied Quality Assurance, which is a NATO standard and mandatory for every partner who wants to work with NATO together. Also, on the other hand, we have more new developments inside the product. The autonomous and unmanned systems are at the forefront of current tech trends. Drones have proven their worth in Ukraine. Because of that, counter drones also electronic warfare systems are in extremely high demand after seeing how effective cheap drones can be. Europe companies are racing to develop better drone tech and countermeasures like jammers or laser defenses. For example, startups like Helsing in Germany are using AI for electronic warfare and air defense solutions. Drones and counter drones are a cat and mouse game that will define battlefields. Which side can outpace the other in this trend will have a huge advantage. So DACH nations are investing in both armed UAVs and in anti-drone defenses, like radar coupled with electronic jamming or even anti-drone drones, which is like a little bit counterintuitive, but it's still one of the most effective ways to counter them. This is also an area rich of SME contribution. A small tech firm with brilliant AI tracking algorithm or novel drone design can suddenly become a critical supplier or acquisition target for a big company. Speaking of AI data and data analytics, they are being applied across defense. For predictive maintenance of vehicles, for decision support in command centers, and in processing the look of data for sensors. We see European flagship project like the FCAS, the Future Combat Air System, a sixth-gen fighter program by Germany, France, and Spain, which heavily relies on AI, drones, and cloud-like battlefield networks. We are also advancing in the space domain and next-gen weapons that the DACH countries are involved in. Space is now recognized as a critical military domain. Think of surveillance satellites or communication. Companies in the DACH region are working on small satellites like synthetic aperture radars, satellites that can see through clouds day or night, or communications microsatellites for dedicated military constellations. While major space players are often outside the DACH regions, Germany and Switzerland have niche experts, like Switzerland through space suppliers, supply satellites with component globally, but they are not that far into the real satellites in the space. Now also in next generations weapons like hypersonic missiles or directed energy weapons like the Israel's Iron Beam laser defense, shows that the DACH region countries are either developing or importing cutting-edge systems. Hypersonic missiles are being researched by major powers. While DACH region isn't leading in that, they will likely contribute subsystems or research via DART and NATO programs. Keeping up with this development is crucial for the industry to remain relevant. It often requires heavily research and development spending. After years of lean R&D budgets in Europe, defense firms are now reinvesting in innovation because the market will reward it. In summary, the technological drivers in the DACH defense scene include massive digitalization and IT integration, a focus on autonomous systems in AI, space, and advanced weaponry for strategic advantage are generally doubling down on innovation and R&D. Now to the market structure. The DACH defense market structure is basically a mix of a few large prime contractors and a vast network of SMEs. Germany, being the biggest market, hosts several of prime. To name a few, you can see here Rheinmetall, K&D, Airbus, Hensoldt, and Diehl Defense. These are 5 biggest in Germany. And I will an example. Their revenue have increased in 2024 around 36%, which is insane. They also have an enormous order backlog of around $55 billion, which is 5 times their annual sales. As you can see, most of the other companies have also inversed their revenue heavily. These are primarily driven by big projects. They are expanding products like lines and notability diversing into new fields. For example, Rheinmetall isn't just making armored vehicles and ammo. They are also branching into things like satellite tech, drones and loitering munition, which are kamikaze drones. This diversification is both a response to the demand signals and a hedge to stay relevant as warfare evolves. But why does knowing this the primes matter? For one, they are barometers for the industry's health, and clearly they are growing fast. Two, their strategies like Rheinmetall moving into space and Airbus focusing on future jets shape where the whole supply chain goes. Interestingly, we are also seeing consolidation moves. For example, Rheinmetall has been on an acquisition spree, acquiring a drone manufacturer, teaming with the Ukraine industry on tank maintenance, and even buying a US firm to get a foothold in the US market. It reflects how the primes are trying to cover all bases globally and technologically. Turning to Switzerland, Austria, their defense industry is smaller but still notable. In Switzerland, key players like Pilatus Aircrafts, MOVAG or RUAG are the biggest entities. As you can see here, especially RUAG has declined in their revenue in the last few years. On the other hand, Pilatus has increased their revenue. This is probably due to restrictions on the exports, especially for RUAG. The real point in Swiss firms often supplies high quality subsystems like optics and components to larger systems made abroad. If neutral laws soften, these companies could see a more strict, more direct export opportunities and will increase their revenue. In Austria, there isn't a single dominant prime comparable to Rheinmetall, but there are well-known mid-sized firms. For example, Glock or Steyr Arms are globally famous for their firearms like pistol and rifles. Austria also has companies like Schieber, which makes the Kammcopter S100, an unmanned helicopter, one of the early successful drones products from Europe. And another firms specializing in things like military trucks, body armor, or optics. Generally, Austria's defense industry has historically been a supplier-oriented, providing components or specific products like firearms, rather than a full spectrum of systems. They are largely suppliers and niche providers. The European market fragmentation is an important aspect to mention. Europe, including the DACH region, hosts many medium players instead of a few giants. In fact, Europe has 27 of the world's 100 defense companies, including the UK and Turkey. This sounds much, but in comparison, the US alone has 41 of the top 100 companies. The DACH primes where listed are significantly not nearly the size of companies like Lockheed Martin or Boeing. The fragmentation means fewer economies of scale, which Europe is trying to overcome via cooperation. But it also means more competition and specialization. Each company finds a niche. For SMEs, fragmentation is a double-edged sword. On one hand, it leaves room to enter the market with a niche innovation, since not everything is monopolized by a giant. On the other, it can limit their ability to grow very largely without mergers. One more structural issue, workforce and talent. Many primes and suppliers are complaining of skilled labor shortage, like every company right now. Not enough engineers, IT specialists, or even skilled mechanics to handle the production ramp up. The industry's image in the past, not the most attractive for young talents, plus the specialized nature of defense tech, has made hiring tricky. Now, with so many projects, the talent crunch could bottleneck growth. This has led to more initiatives with university outreach and, interestingly, to companies emphasizing high-tech projects like space or AI to attract young professionals who might have otherwise gone to Silicon Valley or other jobs. For a structural standpoint, it underscores that expanding defense capacity isn't just about factories and money, it's also about human capital. Coming to SMEs. SMEs, or small and medium enterprises in the defense sector, deserve special attention because they are often drivers of innovation, yet face unique challenges. In the DACH region, there is a broad network of highly specialized SMEs that supply key components or tech. This is a strength, providing agility and niche expertise. Such specialization can yield world-leading products that the primes integrate into larger systems. Moreover, SMEs can react faster to new technology trends, collaborating on emerging tech like drone swarms or AI software, which we increasingly see. Larger firms are partnering with or outright acquiring innovative startups. For example, Rheinmetall Boeing drone companies, Chaos Maffei partnering with the UGV developer, and so on. There are a couple of these examples. The ongoing defense buildup opens more doors for them. Governments and primes are aware that the healthy SME base is crucial. There are efforts to include SMEs in big projects. For instance, the European Defence Fund that I already mentioned often requires a consortium to have smaller companies or startups on board for funding. Also, with so many projects, primes cannot do everything in-house. They need subcontractors that will provide them with additional products. If an SME has a unique capability, say manufacturer of lightweight composites, materials, or cybersecurity solution, this is their time to shine and to secure contracts. Additionally, international partnerships are on the path. A German SME might partner with a French or American firm to get into global programs. We're also seeing industrial associations like the BDSV in Germany or the Swiss ASD helping SMEs to find opportunities and lobbies for their interests. There are also significant challenges for SMEs. Top issue is financing. Many mid-sized defense suppliers struggle to get loans or investments. But why, when we are in such a rise right now, especially in the military industry? Because banks and investors are often restricted and are cautious because of the ESG, the environmental, social, and governance criteria. And some simply avoid anything to do with weapons because it's not the best, has not the best image. A survey found that 44% of defense SMEs in Germany refrain from taking any loans, partly because financing is hard to obtain or too costly. The capital crunch can limit their ability to expand factories, invest in R&Ds, or bridge to cash flow gaps and long-term projects. It's a paradox. There's plenty of demand, but if SMEs can't finance the fulfillment of that demand, that may miss out on. Governments are looking at this. For example, Germany's KfW Bank, KfW Bank, might support a special loan for companies that are in the military industry. Another challenge is compliance and administrative burdens. The defense is a heavily regulated industry. Makes sense. Quality standards, export control, security clearance, and SMEs often find these requirements disproportionately burdensome. For instance, to bid on a military contract, a small company might need to implement strict cybersecurity measures, get facility security clearance, certify to ISO standards, maintains expensive documentations, etc. That means hiring compliance staff or a consultant, which is costly. As we mentioned, many of these adopting ERPs and archiving solutions to cope the expensive documentation duties. Some contracts require that every piece of equipment has traceable documents kept for decades. While digital tools help, the overhead is still significant. If not managed, compliance costs can squeeze SME margins and even push some out of the market if they fail an audit or can't keep up. This is a point where tech solutions could really help SMEs by offering them capabilities they can't develop alone. There are also the talent issue for SMEs. Like already mentioned, is getting better, but it's still a big issue because SMEs are not that have not that much of a big budget as primes. A small company may not be as famous and as a bigger company and not as secure, making it hard to attract young engineers, especially with big tech or larger firms are who are also hiring. Combined with many older experts retiring in the industry, many veterans near retirement, this is a problem in the whole country, in Germany, Switzerland, and also Austria. Some SMEs risk a brain drain or loss of critical know-how. This is driving interest in knowledge management, making sure that knowledge of older engineers is captured and documented, and systems documented so the information isn't lost. Lastly, public preparation and reputational risks is bigger for smaller companies and can be more vulnerable to negative public opinion. If there's a scandal, they have fewer buffers and can quickly lose business. Also, in places like Switzerland, a public referendum could suddenly crucial certain business opportunities. So SMEs must be vigilant about ethical conducts and transparency, but doing so adds another layer of caution and sometimes costs. Coming to the SWOT analysis. As already mentioned, high demand and political backing is one of the biggest strengths right now in the industry. Also, the technological expertise in the DACH region, where firms are leading in many niches. For example, Germany in armor, Swiss in precision, and Austrian in firearms. We have also a strong engineering base and innovative R&Ds, for example, with drones and AI, which give us a competitive advantage. We have also a robust SME network, many specialized suppliers with strong supply chain, innovative at all levels, and encouraging competition and new ideas. The DACH region is also very widely known for their quality reputation. If you, for example, a company is saying that they are producing in Switzerland, they know the product is probably high quality and can be trusted. Also, the political support for the industry is quite high right now. Like I already mentioned, the Zeitenwende in Deutschland or Germany increased awareness in Switzerland and also Austria, means an easier approval and funding for research and development and faster processes in theory. Also, defense now is seen as a necessary, not a taboo. It's easier to attract partners and to gain capital. Some weaknesses, on the other hand, are the dependency on the politics and also the bureaucracy. There are still some slow procurement, especially in Germany. Also, if there is a political shift, the funding could stall. It isn't expected for the next few years, but it can be in like 10 or 20 years. Project can be delayed by administrative hurdles and permits parliamentary approval and so on. Also, for the countries, the fragmentation and scale can be a problem. It can be advantages, but also a problem, like I already mentioned. The financing issue for SMEs is also a big problem. A lot of companies are getting bankrupt because of this, with innovative ideas, because it's costly to develop new drones and new AI, which will be just market ready in a couple of years. So they have to be able to gain some funding. The talent shortage, which is increased by the retaliation of a lot of older veterans, is also a huge problem, which has to be compensated with documentation and innovative ideas. The opportunity that opened, on the other hand, are on one side the high budgets in Europe. Like it's quite obvious that since 2022, there has been a sustainable growth for the next decade. Also, EU cooperation and funds can be a big opportunity for a lot of companies, like joint procurement, joint ventures, let DACH firms access new projects, new fundings, and cross-border partnerships. The technical leadership Niche is a chance for the DACH region to lead in key technologies, like air defense, cyber training, simulators, and so on. Also, and also to cover the global demand. Another opportunity are digitalization and digital efficiency. By embracing this, like with the automation and AI, companies can cut development time costs and outpace competitors. Also offering digital services, updates, cyber protection systems, and so on, and creates better revenue. So this creates better revenue. And also mentioned, SMEs are also opportunity for like the whole countries. Like there is a rapid development in industry with drones, AI, and so on. That's a good time for defense startups to get a foothold in the industry. Threats, on the other hand, like already mentioned, our supply chains are not. I haven't mentioned this right now, but supply chains are an issue because of reliance on imports can halt production. For example, with munition, also certain chemicals or certain metals can be a problem. There are also a problem with inflation and cost overruns. Like always, high inflation in material and energy can erode budgets and buying power. If costs spike beyond contract allowance, companies or governments may struggle. And regulation and political backlash is also a big problem, especially bureaucracy can be a risk. But last but not least, the reputation risk is always a problem. Public opinion will shape which contracts will be made. The government will be cautious not to partner with very not that good seen very badly seen companies. Now a quick outlook. Germany is expected to reach and maybe even overgrown the 2% goal of their GDP. Switzerland, on the other hand, has made clear that they want to spend in the next couple of years around 1%, which will increase their budget constantly. And Austria is also expected to grow their defense budget. Focus areas right now in the industry, especially in the DACH region, are ammunition, air defense, and digitalization. And will conclude in a moderate growth rate and a couple of consolations. The efficiency and ESG to drive is expected to drive competitiveness. Companies will focus on delivering on time and costs to win trust for more contracts, and they are expected to meet ESG expectations to secure financing and public support. Thank you for listening. If you have any questions, just ask them right away.